Alyssa Poggioli, life, leadership, executive, and connection coach, wanting to take you over the next 7 to 8 weeks down the different types of intimacy. Connection and intimacy has been one of the number one topics of discussion in not only my own coaching clients' lives, but in my own personal life. I've recently went through a separation of 5 years, in intimacy, understanding the different levels of intimacy and where certain needs were being met, where certain needs weren't being met. It's really important to identify. And so if you're in a relationship, this is for you, checking in and being sure that you become educated and understanding what are the different types of intimacy, and also what is the level of prioritization that style or that type of intimacy is for you. Like, okay, so it's not about the frequency or the amount of time it is being spent being indulged in your relationship, but what level of prioritization on a scale from 1 to 5, 1 not being important, 5 being really important, where is it there? And then based on your level of importance or prioritization, how often is it happening? And what are ways and strategies that you can start implementing it? So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that we can look at it together, the different ways. The first one up is usually the most common one where people think all intimacy underlies or rides within. So when we think about this, as you can see, the first one is sexual intimacy. So what are the different ways that we can be experiencing and committing to our partners or spouse different forms of sexual intimacy, different sexual acts? Sexual acts can be a multitude of things, but then as we go down, it's talking about your sexual preferences, sharing fantasies, sexting, flirtation and seduction, mutual masturbation, being a contributor to one another's masturbations. I work with a lot of people whose wives are actually in menopause and or their spouses just have a lot of shame, whether the spouses are willing to admit it or not. We live in a world where we are socially and societally conditioned to have certain interpretations around what is healthy sex, what is not, what is a healthy relationship, what is not. So I'm just wanting to challenge you to really look at this list of sexual intimacies and sexual acts. That may be a different type of sex or kissing. It may be adding different tools and toys and resources to enhance pleasure within the sex. As we age, it's really important that you're adding one different thing. I was just listening to a podcast actually, and one of the things that this doctor who specializes in sex talked about was if you are a person that's in a relationship that you typically always are doing like the same position, the same space, the same time of day, one of the most healthy things you can do is change one thing up. So maybe it's the time of day, or maybe it's the same kind of toy, or the like just one thing. So an example of this is, say you have a person that usually is orally pleasing the other person. Maybe changing one thing up is adding music to that scene. Or maybe if it's a female that is servicing either another female or a male, maybe they add a vibrator to themselves while they orally please the person. We want to get really creative with how we're creating different sexual contextual experiences, not only with ourselves, but with our partners and spouses. So, as you can see, there's lots of different ways you can enhance sexual intimacy. Maybe the sexting is where you start, but I want you to get really clear on a scale from 1 to 5, 1 not being important at all, 5 being really important to you and a high priority. Okay, that's your line. And then based on your level of prioritization, if you're a 4 out of 5, how satisfied are you with the amount in which you're experiencing this sort of intimacy, just this one, not any of the other ones, but sexual intimacy? By having these conversations with ourselves and our spouses, we're able to get really clear on how we get to show up for one another. So this week was sexual intimacy. I would love to hear any comments or feedback regarding this. If this is something you struggle with, know that you're normal and know that there are lots of podcasts and books out there. But nonetheless, do the work in which you get to do of getting clear on, do you contribute or withdraw to sexual intimacy? What are the thoughts and patterns and behaviors associated to it? What beliefs do you get to upgrade? What about having sexual intimacy is so challenging for you? What resources or support are necessary to help you become more confident in creating that space of sexual intimacy? There's no need for shame or insecurity. So lean into it, talk to your partner or spouse, get clear on what the level of priority is, and then get clear on what agreements get to be set in place to have more of it. Ciao.